Welcome to MindMatters Masterclass. We're really excited to host and also to launch Clinical Hypnotherapy. It is my honor to introduce our guest speaker, Peter Mabbutt. Peter Mabbutt is the Director of Studies at the London College of Clinical Hypnosis and also the President of the British Society of Clinical Hypnotherapy and Integrative Psychotherapy. He's been practicing and teaching clinical hypnotherapy internationally since 1997. He specializes in pain management, trauma, mind-body healing, relational issues, and also men's psychological well-being. So he has developed and led many hypnotherapy training globally. He's run programs at master's levels at university. He also teaches nearby at Kuala Lumpur. Peter is also the co-author of Hypnotherapy for Dummies. So without much further ado, let us all welcome our guest speaker, Peter Mabbutt.
Thank you very much. Absolute pleasure to see you all and to be here. So the one thing I'd like to do before I start is I want to ask you a question. Very simple question. Has anybody here already experienced clinical hypnosis before? What I want to really highlight here is because everyone here, you might not realize it, but everyone here has already experienced hypnosis, probably several times today already without even realizing it. So for those of you who have heard about it or have experienced it, what I'd like you to do, if you could think of one word, just one word that encapsulates the experience, what it felt like to be in clinical hypnosis. Dreamy, conscious, relaxed and calm, trauma revisit, trance. Yes, disillusioned. So there's lots of different ways of experiencing clinical hypnosis. And I'll qualify this in a moment. Everyone here has had an experience of hypnosis, probably without even realizing they've been in and out of it today or already. So what I'm saying here is we're working on talking to a group of people who are, without even realizing, experts at being in clinical hypnosis. I'm making a wonderful assumption that there are people here who drive. I would imagine there are. People who drive maybe had the experience of driving lots of routes that you know really well. So one of the things I would ask, has anyone had the experience when you get up in the morning, you've got to go into work, you jump into your car and you start driving off and you're driving down the road and your mind's wandering a bit and you end up getting to work, getting out of the car, and then you realize, oh, I don't remember the journey. I know I got here okay. I know I haven't crashed into anyone. I know I haven't run anyone over. I know I stopped at the red traffic lights and then started driving again when it was green without even thinking about it. And yet I'm here safely. Has anyone had that experience before? And even those of you who don't drive, if you walk, you've had very similar experiences as well, I would suggest. I don't know, you're at the top of Orchard Road and you're walking down to a particular shop or going to a business somewhere, and it's quite a long walk and you're walking down and your mind drifts again and you get to your destination, you get to the shop excited to buy whatever it is you're going to buy. But again, you realise you haven't really been aware of the journey you took. You haven't bumped into people, you haven't stepped off the road to cross it and got knocked down, you haven't tripped over steps or anything like that. You've got there quite safely. Yes, as a couple of people have said, we're in autopilot. Now, autopilot is something very different. It's not feeling tired and dreamy. It's a very, very automatic way of driving and a very automatic way of walking. We're using reflexes. So we're bypassing the mind. We're not saying the conscious of a mind. We're not saying, oh, look, here comes a red traffic light. I have to now put my foot, raise my foot off my accelerator and slowly put my foot onto the brake. You just do it. Boom. It's automatic. It's a very safe way of us operating within the world. And you are in an altered state of awareness when you do this. The other question I've got for you, do we have any daydreamers here? Now, stick my hand up for that one. One thing I would like to say to you is daydreaming is good. We're allowed to daydream. It's a very creative state of mind. And it's often been thought of, it's often been said that daydreamers are the most creative of people. They're the ones who are more likely to find creative solutions to problems that are going on during the day. And you may remember perhaps when you were children, sitting in school and teachers droning on at you from the front and you're just sitting there thinking this is boring. You start looking out of the window and You start thinking about that TV program that you're watching at the moment, or something you're going to be playing at break, and so on. And you drift off, you daydream, and all of a sudden you hear, Peter, pay attention, stop daydreaming, stop daydreaming. And you come back to the present. Now, we are taught at an early age, unfortunately, indirectly, to the daydreaming is not a thing you should do. Well, one of the things I have to say to you today is, as adults, I would really suggest that you start daydreaming again. Start daydreaming, be creative. And I don't know if you know, but many of the amazing innovations that we take for granted today, and this also goes from my background in science, many of the things that we use every day from science started out as daydreams. Scientists, people who write books, people who paint, people who create music, they daydream about something. And that daydreaming, that becomes creative. The creativity then becomes something that they act out on. And I hope you would all agree with me that everyone here has to sleep. Everyone has to sleep in order for us to be healthy in our minds and also very healthy in our bodies. So once we've gone through the experience of sleeping, what we have, not just I'm awake, I'm asleep. When we're in bed at night, we are just lying there, perhaps thinking about the day has gone by, perhaps thinking about something you're going to be doing tomorrow, who knows. And you're lying there thinking you're nicely awake, and all of a sudden there's a bang outside your room, and you jump like that, and you realise, oh my goodness, I am not asleep. I wasn't awake either. I was somewhere in between. You might have that experience, you're lying in bed at night and your mind's drifting and you're thinking about things, you think you're still awake, and then all of a sudden you have that feeling, that sensation of falling, and you jerk awake and realise I wasn't fully awake. Well, what we have there is a very natural experience that we all go through. Sometimes people go through it quite a lot, sometimes people don't. But what they're doing is they are entering into a state that is neither awake nor asleep. So as we go through that, the mind starts to wander, starts to daydream a little bit if you want. You might be lying next to your partner and you're reading your book, and all of a sudden your partner turns around to you and says, Orchard Road is made of jelly. Pardon? Yes, it's red jelly. And they think that they're talking total sense, but they're not. They're talking this weird thing. They think they're doing something, saying something to you that makes sense. But because they're in this altered state, this state between awake and being asleep, their mind starts to just come out with various things that instead of just keeping it in the mind, they speak about it. So walking down Orchard Road, driving to that place, has a particular name. We call it waking hypnosis. When you're sitting there in the classroom staring out the room, of course, that's daydreaming. In the world of therapy, we like our a little bit more complex terminology, the one we've just been speaking about, where you're lying in bed and then suddenly the bang happens and you realise you weren't fully awake. That's something called the hypnagogic state. I don't need to learn that. It's just a nice term. It has a name. It's a real thing. When you have that twitch in bed, it's part of this thing called the hypnagogic state. You've also got a similar state that you go through when you wake up from sleep. So you could be lying there, you've just woken up, maybe your alarm's just gone off. You're kind of, it's really nice. I feel nice and snuggled up in my bed, and I'll get up in a moment. And then suddenly you think, I've got a meeting. And you're wake straight up out of that experience. So that state of mind is what we call the hypnopompic state. So it's the one you go through as you wake up. And what we're looking at with these particular states are essentially altered states of awareness. They're transition states. You're not asleep, you're not awake, you're somewhere in between. I've got a rationale as to why I'm talking about this in a moment. Because what we're looking at is naturally occurring states of mind. Many people think that when we come to hypnotherapy or hypnosis, that we create an artificial state. We don't. All we use is a very naturally occurring state of mind. And that naturally occurring state of mind comes about when we begin to focus our attention on something in our inner world or one particular spot. So I might be looking at on my screen, it says stop share. So if I just keep focusing on that, I'm narrowing my focus of attention. Walking down Orchard Road, you will find that you're narrowing your attention thinking about piece of clothing you're going to buy. Driving to work, you're beginning to think about maybe looking forward to the end of work at the end of the day and going out for friends for a meal or something like that. So we go into a focused state of attention, and that cuts off our awareness of what's going on around us, our conscious awareness. We're always aware, but we're not focusing on it. And in so doing, we start to create a relaxed state of mind, a relaxation in mind and body. And the interesting thing is, I want to realize that when we are relaxed, our minds are much more open to learning. If I'm tense, the mind closes up. So if I've got a focused state of attention and I'm relaxing because of that, my mind is open to more learnings. And when we have that experience, if I were with somebody choosing to deliver some suggestions, suggesting things to us, consciously, when they're alert, fully alert, I might say to somebody, okay, you'll enjoy life as a non-smoker. And they may be a smoker, of course. They may, somewhere in their mind, want to become a non-smoker, but because they're awake, because they're alert, they tend to clamp down on that suggestion and more than likely reject it. So when we become relaxed, focused, our minds are more open to learning, we become more suggestible. That means we're more likely to consider enjoy becoming a non-smoker. Can't force somebody to do anything, so it opens up the mind. And opening up your mind like that does not mean to say that you are gullible. Certainly doesn't mean to say that at all. In fact, in this state of mind, your rest of your mind is still there to protect you. So if I were carrying out a clinical hypnosis session with somebody and I suggested that I would like you to give me your credit card details and the PIN number for that card, that person would, boom, wake up straight away and probably, in no uncertain terms, tell me where to get off. So you are always in control in that relaxed state, in that focused state, in that state of learning. You are in control. If I'm suggesting something to you that you actually want, then you're more than likely going to be able to accept that suggestion and go on your way to achieving that. So here's a question for you, just an interesting question. How many years do you think clinical hypnotherapy has been around? It'd be interesting to see what you think. It's not new, that's one thing I can certainly say to you. Once you're considering that, you might be surprised, hopefully very surprised, to realise, you might be surprised to find 1,000 years, but might be surprised to find that with hypnotherapy, or clinical hypnosis, we've got one of the oldest forms of Western psychotherapy that there is. When you think about it, what we realise is that we've got texts that go way, way back in time, but clinical hypnosis predates Freud. Freud trained in clinical hypnosis and practiced clinical hypnosis, but he did this before he came up with his theories of the mind and his theories for psychoanalysis. And in fact, it would be fair to say that his experience of practicing clinical hypnosis is part of what helped him to come up with these particular theories. But it predates even Freud, and even that, when you look, and you've got personally older 1,000 years since mankind learned meditation, basically, if you go back to the very dawn of history, since texts began, we have records of it being used. It might not have been called clinical hypnosis in those days, but of records of it being used on what we recognize now as hypnotherapy that come from all cultures from around the planet. Every culture has accessed this thing called clinical hypnosis, whether they've called it or not. And so, for example, you've got people like Wu Tai, a founding father of Chinese medicine. Wu Tai was referencing it in their writings. It's mentioned in the Hindu Vedic texts. The Persian philosopher and healer Avicenna mentions it in his Book of Healing and another book he wrote, The Canon of Medicine. And the Canon of Medicine became one of the standard medical texts in the medieval world. So it's been around for an awful long time, and it's been used for an awful long time. And closer to home, you'll find that in 1982, the British Medical Association unanimously endorsed its use in the treatment of pain, in the pain of childbirth, pain in childbirth. So they've been aware of it, using it for a long time. Also find that dentistry has used hypnotherapy for a very long time. And leading up to the 80s, when you look between 1950 and 1960, the BMA, the CMA and the AMA all have been stating it should be taught in all medical schools that are training medics. So there's a really strong connection with hypnotherapy in the medical tradition. And, in Singapore, Tan Tock Seng has a fine tradition of using it, and one that we are very proud of and proud to be a part of. That's how we've been using clinical hypnosis, but there's a lot more to clinical hypnosis than just guiding somebody into that altered state. And I say guide, not put, because I can't put anybody into clinical hypnosis. I can only guide them there. Putting them there implies I'm in control of them, which I am never in control of that person. They choose to go that journey with me. But it's not just a case of guiding someone there and saying a few nice things and all of a sudden, like, miracles happened, change occurs. Doesn't work like that. There is a very specific structure to the way in which that we use clinical hypnosis. It's designed to ensure safety, and it's designed to give the maximum benefit to the person that is undergoing that experience. And just as a little aside, as a hypnotherapist myself, guiding somebody into that altered state is also quite relaxing, quite pleasant for us, the therapist too. When you really understand what you're doing, go with the flow, and it's a nice experience as well. But the person that is most important in our therapy room is the client. So at work, what are we talking about? So as I've said earlier, you've got something the consult with a hypnotherapist is very similar to that given by a medical person, those you see within psychotherapy. And we have 6 stages, 6 very distinct stages we go through within each and every session we do. And that keeps a nice structure and ensures the client is safe. It ensures we're doing the right thing for the client. But as part of that, what we're doing is we're understanding the person sitting in front of us. We listen to our client. We find out about our client, who that person is. I want to understand that person. I'm not working on a symptom. I'm working with a person. I treat the person, not a symptom. The symptom is part of who that person is. And everyone in this room, no matter what experience you've ever had with any symptom, it's a very unique experience to you, and that's what we work with. So we listen to the way our clients speak and talk about things. We are aware of, and we are letting them express any emotions they might have. We validate the fact that they have these emotions. Because quite often people say, I don't want to, I shouldn't be having this. So we allow them to have the emotion. Once you allow that, you have control over it. We listen to the words that they're saying as they describe these things. We listen to the sentences. And from all of this, we get a good understanding of the person sitting in front of us, whether it's face-to-face in the room or virtual online like we're talking now. And when we get to the part when we're actually guiding the person into clinical hypnosis, the irony here is, we are considered a talking therapy. When we get to the clinical hypnosis part of it, quite often the client rarely talks. The client's quite silent. There are times when we do have the client talking to us, but generally the client is very, very silent, and we, the therapists, are doing the talking. We use the information we've gained from them in order to help them on their journey of healing, on their journey of change. We help them to gain access to their inner mind, to unconscious mind, if you want to call it that. So through the words we use, help them gain access to their inner mind, and that's important. We'll talk about that in a moment. But the other thing to be very aware of is that, that when we're working with clients, we are aware of the fact that there are many different really good other therapies out there. There's counselling, there's EMDR, there's acceptance commitment therapy, dialectical behavioural therapy, CBT, you name it, there's lots out there. And they are very good. The interesting thing, and so is hypnotherapy, very good. The interesting thing, when you can bring the two together, you can see some amazing results. There's some people presenting with depression and working through their depression. Now, hypnotherapy, very good at helping people work through depression. CT, excellent at helping people work through their depression. But when you bring the two together, when you carry out CBT when somebody's in clinical hypnosis, the research shows you get much better outcomes, enhance each other. They get a really good outcome for the client. So a lot of people now are looking at bringing hypnosis into other approaches of therapy. And doing it, when somebody's in hypnosis, talks about language, but there is a very specific language that we use. I want to talk a little bit about that. And that's essentially the language of imagination. And I'd like to invite you now to do just a little experiment with me. I'm not going to be using clinical hypnosis, but But I'd like to invite you to experience or have an experience of the use of language with imagination. So what I'd like you to do is just make yourself comfortable. This is one of the nice things that we can do with anything to do with what my profession is, clinical hypnotherapy. We're very into helping people become comfortable. So make yourself comfortable in any way you want. You can close your eyes if you wish. But what I'd like you to do is just begin to think. Think about something. And I'd like you to think about a lemon. We all know what a lemon looks like. So just imagine the lemon, the shape of the lemon in front of you. Just look at that shape. Look at the colour of the lemon. Perhaps noticing whether it's just one unified colour or whether that lemon has little brown areas on it or different areas of lemon pigmentation. Perhaps imagining reaching out and just touching the surface of that lemon. Just feeling what it's like to rub your finger across the surface of the lemon. Perhaps it's smooth. Maybe you're aware of the little indentations in the skin of the lemon. Maybe even being aware of a little bit of a scent, a smell, a lemony scent that's coming off the lemon. Maybe hearing the sound of the lemon as you're rolling it backwards and forwards, feeling the skin. I'd like you to just imagine now. You have a knife, a very safe knife, and you're taking that knife and you're just gently going to slice into that lemon, just as you would cutting up the slices of lemon for a drink. Just slice into that lemon. And just imagine seeing the juice dribbling down the side of it, seeing as you cut in a little spurt of juice coming out of it. Maybe imagining breathing in and smelling that citrus scent hit the back of your nose, being aware of the fact that you can taste it in the air, maybe even feeling your mouth begin to salivate, juice of the lemon making your mouth salivate as you smell the lemon smell. Okay, come back to now. Now, what I wanted to just check with you, did anyone in their imagination, could you see that lemon? Could you, as I was suggesting the smell of it, could you smell it? Did you taste it? Was anybody actually salivating when I was doing that? I know I was. Thinking I've got to have a drink of glass of my water in a moment, but my mouth's now nice and moist. Anyone had that experience? Okay, wonderful. Yes, you're all experiencing that. Marvellous. You can't just tasting it sour after tasting the mouth. Now, welcome to the language of imagination. What I was doing was using my words. Look at how I use what we do with words in a moment to create images. And when I say image, it doesn't have to be a picture. It can be any of our senses can be represented in our mind. And that thought, that representation, then triggered a physiological response. And I can assure you, Glenn and the team and my team here, we're not somehow pumping lemon smells into the environment you're in. We weren't setting you up with the smells. I started your imagination off because if you look on the screen, there's a lemon that's dribbling with juice there. So before you got to it, lemon chicken, yes, I'm hungry. And also a glass of lemonade, very nice. But I was helping you, I wasn't doing it, I was helping you to create a strong image in your mind. This, by using words. Now, in therapy, we have a series of ways in which we work with this. We use suggestions. So what we're doing is, for example, if somebody comes in to see me, they want to manage their weight, and they might come in and say, or they've been trying to do this and saying, I must not eat cake, or if it were me, I'd be thinking of chocolate cake. If it was me in Singapore, I can't imagine why I'd think this, but I'd be saying I must not eat char kway teow, or in Malaysia, I must not eat nasi lemak. I love them all, so talking about lemon chicken there is making me think. But that phrase, I must not eat the cake, for example, when we think about that, when we say that word, it stimulates our imagination. It stimulates our five senses. So when I say the word, somewhere in my mind, I know what I look like. I have an image of myself. Must not. Those are just words. It's difficult to imagine something not being there, because in order to imagine it not being there, you have to imagine it's there. So that kind of gets jumped over. Eat. When I say the word eat, and now I'm thinking of lemon chicken again. Thank you. When I say the word eat, I can imagine myself eating. I can hear myself eating, or the cooking of the food. I can feel the texture if I eat, feel the texture on my tongue. I can taste the food. And I can smell that lemon chicken right now. Or certainly in my case, I can smell that right now. So instead of, when I say the words, I must not eat the cake, I am imagining me eating the cake, because I can't imagine not eating the cake. To imagine not eating it, I have to think of it. So in a very weird way, we end up thinking about what we don't want. I don't want to eat the cake, but I think about the cake and wanting to eat it. We also think about language from the perspective of emotion. So when I'm thinking about somebody, or working with somebody who says I must not eat the cake, I'm aware of the power of the words. I'm aware of the fact that they really want to eat cake. They enjoy it. I'm aware of the power of imagination as well. So I want to work with that person to create something that is more appropriate for them. And so we work with them to create a more positive statement. I must not eat cake. They're doing that because they don't want to eat chocolate. They're looking to get fit and healthy or whatever. So I will help them to say, I love eating healthy, nutritious food. We imagine what we want. I want to eat healthy, nutritious food, not what we don't want. So I can imagine that. Love, I can imagine me, and I know what the feeling of love is. Love for a person, love for food. I know what eating is. I know what healthy, nutritious food looks like. I've got a concept of all of those senses in there: see, hear, feel, taste, and smell. I'm putting in the word love. So the mind, and especially in that altered state that we've been talking about, clinical hypnosis, is more open to accepting that piece of information. And what we're doing with our clients is empowering them. We empower them to basically harness their positive imagination, just as you harnessed yours a little earlier with the thinking of the lemon. So how effective is clinical hypnosis? Well, it's been around for a very, very, very long time, as we discussed earlier, in many different ways, shapes and forms. And over the years, the way in which we've been using it has evolved. It's developed different strategies, different approaches, and it's been evolving, since I've been a hypnotherapist. Certain things that we would never touch with hypnotherapy, like depression, I mentioned earlier, we found protocols that allow us to work really effectively with it. And so it's a constantly growing area of helping people experience an empowering form of healthcare. And these are some of the areas in which we can be working with people. So we've got lifestyle illnesses, we've got medical conditions such as pain, emotional psychological challenges and mood disorders, emotional disconnection, abuse and PTSD, motivation, stress and compassion. These are all effectively treated and worked with using clinical hypnotherapy. So, for example, lifestyle illness, a very common thing we work with is smoking cessation and vaping cessation. Of course, I know in Singapore it's very illegal to vape, which we can be working with people. So we've got lifestyle illnesses, we've got medical conditions such as pain, emotional psychological challenges and mood disorders, emotional disconnection, abuse and PTSD, motivation, stress and compassion. These are all effectively treated and worked with using clinical hypnotherapy. So, for example, lifestyle illness, a very common thing we work with is smoking cessation and vaping cessation. Of course, I know in Singapore it's very illegal to vape, which is a law I do wish they'd bring over here. I haven't quite got there yet, but smoking. Somebody comes in to me to become a non-smoker. They think of themselves as a non-smoker. I'll hold my hand up. I'm an ex-smoker, gave up many, many years ago. But when I thought of me back then, I immediately would always have an image of me with a cigarette. If I were imagining myself in a social environment, always with a cigarette. After a meal, always had a cigarette. Having a break from work, always having a cigarette. So my imagination was keeping me in that place as a smoker. My concern about being a non-smoker and going through withdrawal would keep me in that place. So the imagination keeps the smoker where they are. With hypnotherapy, what we can do is we can help change that imagination, get them to imagine enjoying being a non-smoker, to get them to imagine coping well with the short period of withdrawal that comes with smoking and then moving on, helping them to imagine being able to run around with their kids or their grandkids and feeling fit and healthy, being able to not take up eating to replace smoking and to actually find that they are becoming much more healthier, and the extra money they have in their pockets as well. Or when I'm working with somebody who is presenting with pain, hypnotherapy and the management of pain is a very highly researched area. So we come in with an image of ourselves as being in pain. We come in with the disabling focus on the pain itself. With hypnotherapy, I can help somebody imagine themselves coping with pain, Instead of imagining the feeling of discomfort in their wrist, if they've hurt their wrist, I can help them to create an imagination, a feeling of comfort in their wrist. I can help them to perhaps look at changing the sensation from pain into tingling sensation. Pain is there to make us aware we've got to look after ourselves. That's fine, but we don't have to have a noxious sensation there. We can have, a tingling sensation. When I damaged my knee many years ago, I put in a feeling of pressure. So I didn't have the pain of it, and it was very painful. I had a feeling of pressure that's in place. I believed that I would cope. And I could see myself in my imagination coping well. And also, just so that you know, anyone interested in neuroscience, when we do these things, when we do these imaginations, especially with pain, they've got the brain scanning studies showing that, say, for example, the area that perceives suffering switches off. The area that perceives the stimulation, so as being painful, changes, turns off. We get a different perception coming through. The brain changes to this. So that's a very interesting element. And likewise with abuse and PTSD and trauma. I'm a trauma therapist. I work a lot with trauma. And within that, we are helping people to stop imagining themselves as a traumatized, in inverted commas, disabled person, into being somebody who is learning to cope. Instead of seeing those awful traumatic images, we help them to imagine seeing them and becoming empowered, and to be able to let them go, to be able to feel confident in situations and so on. I mean, it's a very brief understanding of what we do there with regards to that. So there are all sorts of elements that come in with what we're doing and how we're working, how we're empowering. Some of you here might be medics. I know some people have quite a lot of people have different backgrounds. And as medics, you'll be very aware that people have fears of injections and fears of going into the doctors. What are the fears based on? Their imagination. Of course, there can be some past experience, but past experience triggers our imagination. Hypnotherapy, we can work with their imagination and help them to change it to something more positive and empowering. So with hypnotherapy, we've got a really fast growing, and it's been growing fast over decades, a fast growing tool that we can use with people. It's an amazing self-help tool. I use it on myself all the time, self-hypnosis. But it's also an amazing tool to build a career around helping others take control of their life and to become empowered in order to create a life for themselves through the guidance of a therapist, one that's more satisfying and one which is more rewarding. So with that thought, I'm going to hand back to Glenn for a moment.
I'm really excited to announce the launch of the Practitioner Diploma in Clinical Hypnotherapy. This has been going on and accredited as well as conducted by LSCCH and LCCH Asia over the last few years, especially during the pandemic. But now for the first time, we are the exclusive academic and educational partner here for Singaporeans in Singapore. And so it's a supervised diploma level clinical training pathway. And we're really happy that we can launch it at the start and the beginning of this new year. Peter, if you could do us the honors as well to help give a bit more information about this Practitioner Diploma pathway.
Absolutely. As you can see, there are 3 parts to this course. There's the Foundation Certificate, there's the Advanced Certificate, and the Specialist Certificate. So just to give you a little bit of information about each of these, the Foundation Certificate, this is where we give time for our students to fall in love with clinical hypnosis, just as we did. Opportunity to learn what it is, to find out how they can access their own inner world and understand themselves properly, and also help others to access their inner world. They discover the power of suggestion. We've touched a little bit on it today. They become experts at taking themselves, self-hypnosis, into this thing called clinical hypnosis, and guiding others into this experience as well. And just so you know, it's a very experiential course, and constantly hearing our students say it's also a very inspirational course. But we don't just sit there and say, right, this is what you do. We will tell you about how to do it. We will then demonstrate it live with a volunteer, and then you are sent into breakout rooms to practice being the subject and also being the therapist. So it's very experiential, to say the least. So lots of sharing, lots of practice. And I like to also bring in the fact that there's lots of laughter. We have fun doing this. We're very respectful of what we're working with, but you can have fun, you can have a laugh. And if you are enjoying yourself with laughter, your mind opens up to learning all that more rapidly. When I'm with my clients, my natural personality is I like a bit of a joke. And so if my client has a sense of humor, I will work with their sense of humor. And even therapy can be fun. And some of the techniques we have actually help you to connect with laughter. But the other thing about the foundation is you do make very good friends on the course. In fact, the course I did, there were about 17, 20 people on it way back in the mid-90s. And I can certainly tell you, I'm still in touch with around about 14 or 15 of them. And it was during my training, way back then, that I got to know Sheila Menon, who unfortunately is wrapped up in bed, hopefully eating chocolate cake, getting herself well. But we got to know each other when we were training. And that's how we've known each other. And then when she came back to Malaysia, set up the college in Malaysia as well. So that element of falling in love with hypnosis, getting the basics going, we move into the advanced certificate. And in the advanced certificate, what we are doing there is building on part one. We're helping you to become an expert in converting the passion that you have for clinical hypnosis into a confident skill set that allows you to step into what we would call a therapeutic framework and begin to work with clients. So you learn to take a case history. We teach you how, from that case history, create a treatment plan. From that, we'll teach you how to do a variety of different approaches that help people to overcome their symptoms. You'll also get the opportunity to join global professional societies and also to gain very important, all-important professional indemnity insurance, which is there to protect you and also to protect your client. But it's not just about teaching you in class these techniques. The course also takes you into the real world of working with clients, and clients with real symptoms like insomnia or weight management, phobias, smoking cessation. So this really means that what you learn in the classroom, you're also applying in the world out there on real cases. And you're not just sort of, right, go out there and do this. We also provide you with clinical mentoring. So you've got somebody who you can talk to about your cases. We've got small group tutorials where we were coaching you. We teach you how to basically start building a practice and how to manage your practice. And at the end of the course, you'll be very aware of things like our 1-session protocol, for example, for smoking cessation. Very powerful protocol. Most of us have around about an 80-85% success rate with it. So you'll be looking at those and knowing how to do those. You've also got the multi-session protocols for things like weight management. You have a lot of people coming in for weight management after the wonderful excesses of feasting at Christmas, but also working with symptoms that might require slightly deeper understanding and have deeper issues, like, for example, insomnia. There will be an evaluation, as in all our courses, and after successfully completing that, you will be able to go out there and call yourself a behavioural hypnotherapist. And that's your next stepping point. Move from the advanced certificate into the specialist certificate. And this is where we are really building on everything you've learned already and helping you to formulate that into becoming a really expert clinical hypnotherapist out there. We introduce working with more complex cases based around anxiety and depression, based around emotional pain. You'll also have a very personal tutor and a personal clinical mentor. And again, you'll be working with real clients, and this is where you can start to charge fees. So you can essentially earn whilst you learn. You'll get some very interesting specialist techniques that help you guide your client into accessing very deep and deeply hidden inner resources, techniques such as dissociation, and the one that most people often think of as being associated with clinical hypnosis, and that's the regression approaches. But most important of all, this course is there to strengthen your confidence to go out there and change lives. It will build on the confidence you've been building on seeing clients whilst you're training. Go out there, changing lives. You'll have this amazing tool. And with this amazing tool, you also get our commitment. And our commitment is to help you be very kind therapists. Now, we have a strapline, we have a motto, kindness in another's trouble, which we call KIAT. That's something we bring into the way we help you to interact with your clients, show care for your clients, to create safe spaces and spaces where they can feel comfortably contained in order to work through their particular journey of healing. We have a wonderful community that we build up with regards to the way we work with people and the way that we have our training. Clinical hypnotherapy changes lives. On a personal level, it allows you to connect with yourself, your own inner world, your own inner understanding. And it also allows you to connect with fellow students. It builds up a community that is very supportive in the classroom and very importantly out of the classroom. At the same time, we also establish a wide variety of collaborations. So we collaborate with many different professional societies out there, many different communities out there. So we have this really impressive community. And together, we really believe that the LCCH and the LSCCH group, combined with our graduates and our partners, we have this strong belief that we can make a difference in the communities in which we live and make a difference to the lives of the people who share that community. So I really like to look forward to joining you as you join our community of expert clinical hypnotherapists.
I do want to also share some reasons that most practitioners choose this course. There are 6 here, and really quickly I'll just read out the headers from left to right. This is the shortest globally recognized diploma pathway. I also want to say that this is the highest level qualification, which is a practitioner diploma. That's almost equivalent to the clinical diploma, and it's just one step before the professional diploma. This is the highest qualification, at least in Southeast Asia. Next, this is a supervised clinical practice, so you're not alone. This is not self-paced learning. This is really a hand-holding and accountable learning pathway. Lecturers and mentors will be around to support you. It is a diploma level qualification, like I just mentioned earlier on. On the right side, a very supportive community of practice and practitioners, as Peter mentioned. And in Singapore, we want to pilot this. So, we gather as a COP. There could be live as well as online group sessions, what we call practice circles. So you're never alone and you're never lost. Last two, this is a recognized pathway to the BSc IP membership, of which Peter is the president of the British Society of Clinical Hypnotherapy and Integrative Psychotherapy. It's a professional membership and is globally recognized. And lastly, this is the most affordable value per investment, simply because we are launching this. So the pioneering batch always gets first dibs in privileges, but we will reserve that offline. I think if you want to find out more, we've got a fully furnished webpage on the practitioner diploma in clinical hypnotherapy. All you need to do is scan this QR code, or you can click on the link and you can take your time to read that, even make the inquiries, and the price points are all there as well. I just want to say before I end this part that most professional and practitioner diplomas would cost anywhere from 10, 11K onwards up to 18K Sing dollars. Yeah, and this, as we start off with this pioneering batch, the first intake will be in March. It will be less than $10,000. Again, more info is on the webpage, as well as our team will be ready to answer any question and maybe even hop on a call with you.